Hi, I'm Rebecca, and welcome to this class on the present perfect continuous tense, which is also called the present perfect progressive tense. It's one tense, it just has two names. That's all right. So, this class is part of a series created by engVid to help you learn and start using the different English verb tenses step by step, okay? Now, the present perfect continuous is an advanced tense, and the fact that you're watching this video tells me that you are already at a high level of English. So that's a great thing. Feel good about it, okay? It's excellent to have reached that stage. What I will do in this class is to explain to you exactly what this tense is, when we use it, how we use it, so that you can start to speak and write more comfortably and confidently using this tense, okay? And I think you'll find it really useful. So, are you ready? Let's get started. So, the present perfect continuous tense is a special tense in terms of time. Why? Because it connects or links both the present and the past. It doesn't talk only about the present or only about the past. It connects them. Let's see how. So it talks about an action that started in the past and it's still continuing now. Okay? Something that started in the past and it's still going on now. All right? So let's look at an example to understand exactly how it works. So I've written two sentences on the board. They are from two different tenses, but let's look at them and see how they are different. So the first sentence, I have cooked dinner. The second sentence, I have been cooking dinner. So what's the difference between these two sentences? Is there a difference? Not just in the words, but I mean in the meaning. Is there a difference in the meaning? In English grammar, there is a difference, okay? Because if I say, I have cooked dinner, it means I cooked it in the past and now it's ready, okay? I don't have to cook anymore. I'm finished. And when I say I have cooked dinner, I'm only interested in the result, which is that I don't need to cook anymore. I'm done. But if I say I have been cooking dinner, that means I started cooking in the past and I'm still cooking now. I haven't finished. I'm still continuing to cook. I'm not done yet. So in this one, first of all, there's a difference because I'm not finished. It's still continuing. And secondly, because the focus is more on the process, on the activity, not so much on the results. Okay? So this second one that we looked at, I have been cooking dinner, is the tense we're learning here. This is the present perfect continuous tense. That first example you looked at was the present perfect tense by itself. All right? So let's just take a quick look at how this tense is formed. So you have the subject, I, you, we, they, etc. You have two helping verbs, have been or has been. And then you have a verb plus ing. For example, I have been learning. You can use this. You can use this right now. Because let's say you started learning English in the past and you're still learning now, right? So you could say, I have been learning English for some time. Okay? So I have been learning, you have been learning, we have been learning, they have been learning. But here we have to change it a little bit. He has been learning. She has been learning. It has been learning. It might be a computer or artificial intelligence, okay? So here you see the difference between have been and has been. And we'll be looking at all of this much more in detail as we go forward. Now let's look at when to use the present perfect continuous tense. So, as I said earlier, you can use it for something that started in the past and it still continues now. For example, we have been working on this project for 6 months. What does that mean? We started working in the past, 6 months ago, and we have been working and working and working and working. So therefore, you can say we have been working. So have been working, that's the tense, the present perfect continuous tense. All right, there you go. And it means that they started 6 months ago and they are still working. All right, so it combines that past and present. We could also say sea levels have been rising. So where's the tense here? Right here. Have been rising. Now, for example, I took this example on purpose because let's say that you're appearing for an English exam such as the IELTS or TOEFL or some other English proficiency exam, or you're writing at a university level. Then let's suppose you have a topic on global warming and you have to write about it. If you write a sentence like that using one of these perfect tenses, you will definitely score much higher because this is an advanced tense and it shows the examiner that you understand and can use correctly the advanced English tenses. Okay, so keep that in mind. Next, we can also use the present perfect continuous tense to talk about something that started in the past and it just finished recently. Okay? I know I told you that it continues, but really it was continuing and continuing and continuing until just now. For example, let's say that you're trying to reach your friend, right? And you're calling them and calling them. You've been calling and calling and they haven't answered and you're getting a little bit worried. And finally your friend calls and you say, "Hey, where have you been? I've been calling you for hours." That means you were calling in all the time in the past, including almost just now, until the friend called. Okay? So here's I've been calling. I've is a short form for saying I have. All right? We will learn that. Another example of that kind, we have been waiting for you. So let's say you're at a restaurant and you're supposed to meet this friend. Maybe it's the same friend. I don't know. Okay? And you've been waiting and waiting and waiting and your friend's not coming. You don't know what happened to them. And finally, your friend shows up and you said, "Hey, where have you been? We've been waiting for you. We have been waiting." So that means you were waiting in all the time in the past till now. So therefore, we can use have been waiting in this situation. Okay? You can also use this tense with a lot of common expressions. Let me show you what they are. Let's take this sentence. I've been studying for 3 hours. So, I've been studying is the tense itself, and the word for is very often used with this tense. Let's look at the other sentence. I've been studying since 5 o'clock. Again, this is the tense, and the word now is since. So what's the difference between for and since? I hope you know, but let's just refresh. So for is talking about a period of time, and since is talking about a point in time. All right? Since 5 o'clock, let's say it's 8 o'clock now, I've been studying for 3 hours, or I've been studying since 5 o'clock. All right? Good. Another expression, it has been raining all day. So, has been raining, this is the tense, and this is the expression. We could say all day, all night, all morning, all afternoon, all evening, okay? Doesn't matter. But anything like that which suggests a period of time and that something can continue during that period, okay? And another one, she has been exercising a lot lately. Or she has been exercising a lot recently. So lately and recently means in the short time before now. So these are the expressions, okay? Lately or recently. And has been exercising is the tense itself. So these are the main situations in which we can use this tense. So in English, we have two kinds of verbs, dynamic verbs and stative verbs. Dynamic verbs are like action verbs, and stative verbs describe some kind of state or condition. Most verbs are dynamic. Examples of dynamic verbs are eat, run, work. And examples of stative verbs might be think, believe, or love. Okay? There is a long list of stative verbs which you need to check. Look at a good grammar book. Why is that important? Because with this continuous tense or any continuous tense, you cannot use stative verbs. No stative verbs, okay? So let's look at some examples of what you cannot do and how you cannot use the present perfect continuous tense. So we cannot say, for example, I have been knowing John for 2 years. That is wrong. Why? Because know is an example of a stative verb, and we cannot use stative verbs with this tense. So this is wrong, okay? Completely wrong. And what you would need to do in that case is not use the present perfect continuous, but just use the present perfect. You could say, I have known John for 2 years. Have known is just present perfect, and that's fine, okay? Because, why? Not because of the activity, but because of the verb itself. The verb itself being stative means that we can't use it in the continuous form, okay? Let's take another example. You cannot say, he has been liking this book all his life. No. Why? Because like is another one of those stative verbs. So you cannot use it in that continuous form. You can say, he has liked this book all his life. So there you're using what? Present perfect and not present perfect continuous. Another example. The students have not been understanding this lecture. That is wrong. Why? Because understand is another stative verb, and we cannot use stative verbs with the continuous tenses, right? So what do we need to say instead? The students have not understood this lecture, and this is an example of a present perfect sentence. Okay? So if you're trying to express some ideas, think about whether the verb is stative or dynamic. If it's stative, you cannot use the present perfect continuous tense. Now let's look at how we form the present perfect continuous tense, which is also called the present perfect progressive tense. All right, so basically we're taking the subject plus have been or has been plus the verb plus ing. This verb plus ing is sometimes referred to as the present participle, but if you don't know that term or you don't like that word, forget about it. What it means is just the verb in its base form plus ing. All right? Now, I've divided the board into 3 parts for positive sentences, negative sentences, and for questions. So let's go through each section and see what happens. So, for I, you, we, and they, we say something like this. I have been working. So our sample verb here is a regular verb first, to work. Our sample irregular verb is the verb to go. All right, so let's see how both of them can be used very easily in this tense. So you could say, I have been working, you have been working, we have been working, they have been working. But for he, she, and it, you know, we have to change it a little bit. Then we have to say, he has been working, she has been working, it has been working. Let's say the air conditioner, okay? That's with a regular verb. If you have an irregular verb like go, it's exactly the same thing. I have been going, you have been going, okay? No problem. That's in a positive sentence. Now let's look at the negative option. In a negative sentence, we would just add basically the word not. So you would say, I have not been working. You have not been working. We have not been working. They have not been working. Okay, the not just makes it negative. And if we want to shorten that or contract it, then have not becomes haven't, right? How are we doing that? We're basically canceling this O and we're joining the two words have plus not into one word, which is pronounced haven't. Say it after me. Haven't. Good. So you could say, I haven't been working. Okay, and most of the time in conversation, that's what we use. We use these contractions a lot. All right? Next, let's look at what happens for he, she, and it. There also, we're basically adding not. So we would say, he has not been working. She has not been working. It has not been working. Or, he hasn't been working. She hasn't been working. It hasn't been working. Okay, say it after me. Hasn't. Good. We're going to practice that a little bit more soon. Next, let's look at what happens when we form a question. This is always a little bit trickier, so be careful. So here, first we have. Have you been working? Have they been working? Right? It's the same for everyone. Has he been working? Has she been working? Has it been working? Okay? So again, the have with I, you, we, and they, and has with he, she, and it. And we still have to have the have and the been. You see that everywhere. Have been, has been, okay? So here in this tense, we have two helping verbs, all right? We have the subject, we have the helping verb have, we have the helping verb to be in the form of been, okay? So have been or has been, plus whatever verb you want, plus ing. And that's basically how we construct the present perfect continuous tense. Now, remember that just like in many other tenses, if you want to add like a question word, then you can do that. You just have to put it in the right place. Like here, you could say, where have you been working? Why have you been working? How long have you been working? All right? So whenever you want to add those question words or phrases, you can do that. Just put it here before this structure and keep the rest of the structure exactly like that, and you'll be absolutely fine. Now, I gave you an example with the verb work and the irregular verb go, but it will work the same way for any other verb. For example, the verb save. Let's try that one. You have been saving money. You haven't been saving money. Have you been saving money? Or let's take an irregular verb like think. I've been thinking about changing my job. I haven't been thinking of changing my job. Have you been thinking of changing your job? Okay, so whether it's a regular verb or an irregular verb, it's going to follow exactly this pattern. Now let's look at contractions and pronunciation to make sure that you can spell and say the words associated with this tense correctly. Let's get started. So the first one, I have been working. That's the full form, but as I said, when we're speaking, we usually shorten it. We contract it. So let's see exactly what's happening so that when you write it, you're also spelling it correctly. So I have been becomes I've been. So how do you know where to put the apostrophe? You put it where you take out some letters. So what did we take out here? I've is short for I have. So we took out the H and the A and we added an apostrophe and we joined these two words. So I have becomes I've. Let's say it now. I've been working. Good. The next one, if it's negative, I have not been working, right? So here, that becomes I haven't been working. Say it after me. I haven't been working. Good. what did we do there? What did we take out? We took have not. It became haven't. So we took out what? We took out the O, added the apostrophe, and we joined those two words. Okay? So say it after me. I've been working. I haven't been working. Now, when you're saying that, make sure that you're pronouncing that T at the end, because if you don't, then it will sound like the positive version a little bit, okay? And it can sound confusing to the listeners. So, I haven't been working. There's a T sound at the end. All right. So, now let's see how it works with each of the subjects. You have been becomes you've been. All right? We have been, we've been. You can repeat it after me. They have been becomes they've been. You have not been working becomes you haven't been working. We have not been working becomes we haven't been working. They have not been working becomes they haven't been working. Okay, let's say it again quickly. You haven't been. We haven't been. They haven't been. And of course, if you're trying to say this tense, you must say that verb plus ing after that, okay? We're just not saying it right now because we're focusing on the pronunciation here. Okay, now what happens with he, she, and it? A similar idea. He has been working becomes what when we shorten it? He's been working, okay? So what happened here? He has, we took out this, right? And we just put the apostrophe, all right? And that becomes he's. He's been working, all right? Say it after me. He's been working. Now, even though there's an S, it sounds a little bit like a Z or a Z sound. He's been working. Good. If we make it negative, he has not been working becomes what? He hasn't been working. So what happened here? This is short for has not. We took out the O, we added the apostrophe, and we contracted those words. So we say he hasn't been working. Good. Let's do the same thing here. She has been working becomes she's been. It has been, it's been. Now you see this been, I'm really saying it pretty short and fast, right? I'm not saying been. It's been a long time. No, it's been. It's short, all right? So make sure you're doing that. And similarly here with the negative, she has not been working becomes she hasn't been working. You say it. Good. It has not been working becomes it hasn't been working. You say it. Good. Okay? So now you know the contractions and the pronunciation of this tense. Now let's look at some of the spelling changes we need to make in the main verb. So, for most verbs, all you have to do to add that verb plus ing is to add the ing. For example, think becomes thinking. Fix, fixing, right? All we have to do most of the time is to just add that ing. However, there are a few exceptions. For verbs ending in an E to begin with, we have to drop the E and then add the ing. For example, the word change, right? It ends with an E here. You see that? And it becomes changing, right? We drop the E. Hire ends with an E. and we made it hiring without the E. Okay? Next, verbs that end in IE. There, we have to change the IE to a Y. For example, tie becomes tying. Lie with L-I-E becomes lying with L-Y-I-N-G. All right? Now, for verbs ending in CVC, okay, what does that mean? CVC stands for consonant, vowel, consonant. So, you know what a vowel is in English? A, E, I, O, U. These are the vowels. And every other letter in English is a consonant. So, if the verb, when you look at it, we look at it from the end, all right? If this letter is a consonant, and then a vowel, and then a consonant, then what you have to do is to double the last letter. For example, plan becomes planning. Run, right? If we look at it from here, consonant, vowel, consonant, right? So run becomes running. All right? That's it. These are the main changes in spelling that you need to make for the verb itself, the base verb. Now let's look at how to give a short answer in a polite way using this tense. So let's suppose that somebody asks you, have you been going to the gym? Your answer is probably going to be yes or no, right? But in English, we don't usually just say yes or no. We say a little bit more. But we don't have to repeat everything they said in the question. So let's look at how it works. So if they ask you, have you been going to the gym? You could say, yes, I have, or no, I haven't. And you get this part from the question itself, right? The question begins with have, and you can use this in your answer. The important point to remember is if it's a positive answer, we cannot use any contraction there. So you have to say the full, yes, I have, or no, I haven't. The same thing here. Let's look at this example. Has he been helping you? So, what could you say? Yes, he has, or no, he hasn't. And once again, we have to use no contraction. We cannot use the contraction. You have to use the full form. All right? So, let me ask you a few questions, and you can give me the answer. Have you been getting up early these days or recently? So, you probably could say, yes, I have, or no, I haven't. One more question. Have you been working hard recently? Yes, I have, or no, I haven't. And the last question, have you been learning English tenses? I know your answer for this one. Your answer would be, yes, I have. Now let's do some practice. So what I've done is I've written some phrases and some sentences on the board. And what we will do orally, this time we're not going to write it, we're just going to say it, is we're going to take these phrases and change them into present perfect progressive or continuous. And first we'll make positive sentences, then we'll make negative ones, and then we'll make questions. Maybe not the full sentence, but just this phrase, okay? So let me show you an example with number 1. So here it says, they watch. So if we want to change this, which is right now all present simple, okay? They watch. If we want to change it to present perfect continuous, what does it become? They have been watching. Okay? Let's do number 2. She sleeps. She has been sleeping. Okay? You can either say it with me if the answer comes to you quickly, or you can say it after me. Number 3. It works. It has been working. You attend. You have been attending. Good. Number 5. We pay. We have been paying. He teaches. He has been teaching. They go. They have been going. She organizes. She has been organizing. Okay? Good. So you did 8 which are positive. Now let's make them negative. They watch. Okay, let's do this. Instead of saying they have not, this time let's use the contraction. Okay? So they watch. They haven't been watching. She sleeps. She hasn't been sleeping. It works. It hasn't been working. You attend. You haven't been attending. We pay. We haven't been paying. He teaches. He hasn't been teaching. They go. They haven't been going. She organizes. She hasn't been organizing. Okay? Very nice. Good for you. Now, there are 2 more. So let's see what we can do with that. So now, this is a full sentence in the present perfect continuous tense, 2 sentences. And we're going to make them negative, and then we're going to make a question. Okay? So first, let's read it. They have been living in New York. Make it negative. They haven't been living in New York. Make it a question. Have they been living in New York? Good. Number 10. He has been reading. Make it negative. He hasn't been reading. And make it a question. Change the order. Has he been reading? Okay, that's super. So now, let's look at some common mistakes that are made with this tense and how you can avoid them. So the mistakes tend to be of 3 different kinds. Sometimes the wrong verb is used, sometimes the wrong tense is used, and sometimes the wrong word is used. Let's look at the examples. In the first one, the student wrote, I have been understanding the lesson. That's wrong. Tell me why. Why is it wrong? Because it's the wrong verb being used in the wrong way. Because understand is one of those stative verbs, right? So we cannot use the stative verb understand in that continuous form. The correct form of that sentence would have been, I have understood the lesson. So here we would have needed to use the present perfect tense and not the present perfect continuous with this verb. Okay? Next, sometimes the wrong tense is used by a student. For example, this student wrote, I am working here since 2018. That's wrong. Why? Because this is actually present continuous. And present continuous only talks about now. So if the student only said, I am working here, that would have been okay. But the student added, since 2018. So in that case, we cannot use that present continuous tense. We needed to, in fact, use the present perfect continuous, which connects the past and the present. So here, which should have been, I have been working here since 2018. So in this case, sometimes you have to identify, is this the right place to use the present perfect tense? Which other tenses are there? What should I be using? And use the right tense at the right time. Next, sometimes the wrong word is being used somewhere in the sentence. For example, a common mistake is here. I've been living here since 3 years. That's wrong. Why? Because of this word, since, right? We can't use since like that. Since is supposed to be used with what? A point in time, not a period of time. The correct sentence would have been, I've been living here for 3 years. Okay? For 3 years since 2018, for example. All right? So be careful to avoid these mistakes when you're using this tense. So to review, you know the present perfect continuous tense when you know when to use it and how to use it. So let's review again the how to use it part. The positive sentence, it has been snowing all day. The negative, it hasn't been snowing all day. The question, has it been snowing all day? All right? When you can do that and move quickly between the positive, the negative, the question, then you have mastered how to construct this tense and how to formulate the sentence or the question. All right? So, this is really amazing. I hope you recognize that it's quite an achievement to get to this point in your study of English where you can use this tense. It's really a good achievement, so feel good about yourself, feel proud of yourself. Clearly, you're a serious student and you have serious goals and you are achieving them, okay? So I really congratulate you on that. Now, if you want to take it a little bit further, practice now. Use this tense. Use some examples. What have you been doing recently? Write about yourself. Write a few things, okay? What have you been doing recently? What have you been studying recently? What have you been learning recently? What have you been watching? What have you been doing in general, okay? Write some sentences about yourself, about members of your family. And this way, you will really master this tense, okay? Now, after that, if you like, it's time to move on. When you feel you've understood this tense well, then move on to the next tense in our series, which is the past perfect tense. All right? And in case you feel that you'd like to review a little bit more, then please do the quiz that we have on this tense on engVid. Thanks very much for watching and all the best with your English.